Okay, I think we'll try and begin now, and thank you for your patience. It's difficult to get folks together on a weeknight, and we appreciate very much the fact that so many of you are here tonight. For those of you who are parents of students who have Mr. Orsenego, I hope that you had a chance to read the letters that were sent out today. Unfortunately, Mr. Orsenego is not going to be able to teach right now. He's experiencing some health issues that require him to focus on that for right now. And true to form, only so many times have I seen this in Bronxville. Parents have been writing to me in droves, asking what they can do, how they can get in touch, how they can share their thoughts and feelings regarding Mr. Orsenego. And at the moment, Mr. Orsenego and his wife just want to deal with their family and what they've got to get their heads around in terms of their choices and the things that they've got to do for Jean. And they were so grateful and so appreciative, but they asked if we could hold off on anything at the moment because they're feeling a little overwhelmed in general, but the heartfelt feelings were greatly appreciated. But if and when that changes for them, I will be the first to let folks know how we can share our strength and share our well wishes for the Orsenegos. So thank you again for those of you who contacted me today. Tonight, though, we are here to talk about next steps. We're here to talk about Math 8 enrollment. And we're going to change things. And it's been a long time coming. And it's been a process that's taken a significant amount of work to achieve, and an evolution in thinking and an evolution in instruction as well, to be able to have our faculty be able to function in a way that will allow for this next step in our academic evolution, and that is to offer open enrollment in math courses in grade 8. That has not happened in Bronxville before. And we're really proud to be here tonight to share our plans and to talk about some of the specifics about what this means. The 2 math courses that we are going to offer next year. We have with us tonight Dr. Mara Ketke, who is our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and she has been essential in helping to drive this conversation over a number of years. And she's going to share a little of the baton pass, if you will, that happens between middle school and high school. And I look forward to having her share those things with you in a bit. I'm going to be speaking about what the criteria should be that parents should be thinking about as you consider options for next year's math. We're going to talk about criteria for entry into the higher level of math, which is Algebra 1. And we're going to talk about what it will take to be a student in good standing in that class as the year progresses in 8th grade. And again, that will tie back into Mara's discussion about the about the work that will happen in 9th and 10th grades, as a snapshot of what that framework and that scaffold looks like. To start with, there are some of you who this is your 3rd and 4th child. And for some of you, this is your first child who has ever been in 7th grade. So you may not know, or you may be completely familiar with what happens currently. But the current structure in grade 8 is for students to have 3 levels of mathematics. Algebra 1, which is a New York State course that has been designated by the Board of Regents, that has included within it a specific number of units that have very clearly drawn and delineated content and curriculum that must be covered for successful completion of the course. Algebra 1 is generally given in grade 9 in most school districts. That is where New York State refers to the course in its sequence of a math sequence for students. Giving the class in grade 8 is an important distinction that Bronxville has held for a long time. And that's great. But not every student has been prepared to take the Algebra 1 course. And we have offered a hybrid, if you will, a Math 8 honors course, which took half the year for covering Math 8 concepts. And then the second half of the year, February to June, was spent on the first half of Algebra 1. In 9th grade, those students in the first semester of 9th grade took the second half of their algebra class, and then they took the Regents in January. Some of those students concurrently took a course in geometry as well. Some did not. And then there is also Math 8, which is a course that is also designated by New York State. We don't make the units. We don't. We add to them, but we don't subtract from what New York State suggests is required for completion of Math 8, which is, to use another term, it's a pre-algebra course. It is all the underpinnings that are required to take part in an algebra course experience. It is a rigorous course. It is a long-standing course in the curriculum for New York State, and it is not something that should be skipped. It is a class that helps students master a significant number of concepts that are essential both to the algebraic understanding and geometry. And algebra and geometry are intertwined in grade 10. So the work in Algebra 1 is set, and so is the work in Algebra 8. The Math 8 honors course we're going to jettison. We are going to take it out of our offerings, and we are going to offer both Algebra 1 and Math 8 as options. Options that are open enrollment. We'll talk more about what open enrollment means as we go through this evening. But basically, we are suggesting that families can make the decision which math class they would like their child to take. We are not, however, suggesting that you're going to make that decision in a vacuum. Yes, there will be a set of criteria that you should consider as you make the family decision. And among that criteria are how is the student doing on a routine basis in mathematics classes currently. If a child is in Math 7 honors, it is not necessarily a predictor that Algebra 1 is absolutely the right choice for every student leaving Math 7H. It is generally a good predictor, but it is not a guarantee. Teachers will be giving some recommendations to parents. You will not have to solicit those recommendations. The teachers will very happily give their recommendations to you, and that's what they are. They're a recommendation. They are not a prescription, nor are they something that must be followed. Again, this decision has to do largely with motivating students to be fully engaged and very excited about the next step in their math career. And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mara in just a minute to talk about trajectory and where the different courses land as you move forward. But the Algebra 1 and the Math 8 class are the two options that students will have in grade 8. We are going to talk in a little while about what the criteria needs to be for students to join Algebra 1. Yes, it's open enrollment, but there are some requirements that students must fulfill in order to be a part of that coursework. And we'll talk a little bit about what the year will look like as well. But before we get to that, I'd like to introduce again Dr. Mara Ketke, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And she's going to give us a little bit more of a broader view of math across the next several years, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Mara.
Hi, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so as Tom mentioned, we're very excited about making this shift in our 8th grade curriculum in terms of math offerings. So just to reiterate, you know, your students are currently in 7th grade. They would be in Math 7 or Math 7H. You can, you know, make a choice with your family. I believe the teachers will provide some guidance, but that is just what that is, guidance. And it will be the family and the student's choice as to whether to enroll in Math 8 or the Algebra 1 Regents level course. So students who choose to enroll in Algebra 1 do take the New York State Regents at the culmination of that course. That is not a choice. That is a requirement because, as Tom mentioned, this is a Regents level course and they culminate in a Regents. And then from there, students have 3 options as 9th graders. There is the Geo-Trig Honors class and the Geo Honors class. That is done through a placement, so that is not open enrollment. That is typically decided by a very rigorous course grade, and typically we also look at the Regents score with particular attention to the constructed response portion of the Regents. So there is multiple choice questions on the Regents and also constructed response where students actually solve the problems on paper as opposed to choosing from multiple choice, you know, from a series of multiple choice questions. So we tend to look at that portion of it a little more specifically to determine who is placed in Geo Honors versus Geo-Trig Honors. The third option for a student who takes Algebra 1 Regents course at the end of, as an 8th grader, is to repeat Algebra 1 Regents if they so choose to. And, you know, as Tom mentioned, algebra is a fundamental course. All of, you know, upper level mathematics is built upon algebraic skills and algebraic thinking. So some students may, in fact, you know, choose to repeat that course. It's important to note that because the Algebra 1 with Regents is a high school course, students who take that and move on to either GOH or GO-Trig-H through the placement process will have that course grade reflected as their first grade on their high school transcript. So that is a part of that course. And the only way to avoid that happening would be to repeat it as a 9th grader, in which case your grade as a 9th grader would count. So it's important that you understand that given this is a high school Regents level course, that grade as an 8th grader would appear on your high school transcript. You know, in terms of what happens, you know, in the future, in terms of where students move after 9th and 10th, what typically happens is students in Geo Honors move to an Algebra 2 Trig course. Students placed in the Geo-Trig Honor course as 9th graders move to a Algebra 2 Trig course with topics in pre-calculus. And what is typical, and I say typical because it isn't 100% of the time the case, students in Geo Honors will more than likely end their math career as a senior in AP Calculus AB. Students in the Geo-Trig Honors course as a 9th grader will likely end their math career as a senior with AP Calculus BC. So again, just to reiterate, where we are right now is the open enrollment process into Algebra 1 with Regents. And following that, you are moving on to a placement process that is guided by course grades and performance on the Regents as an 8th grader.
Thanks, Mara. So the next part of what we need to discuss is something that I had mentioned earlier in our discussion, and that is the fact that those pre-algebraic concepts cannot be skipped. They do not just form by doing the algebra. You've got to have those precursors. So how are we going to manage doing that? Well, in the work that we are suggesting students need to do to be prepared for this new Algebra 1 class, we believe that it's in students' best interest to do summer work to prepare for Algebra 1. And the summer work that we are going to give students who would like to take the challenge of being considered for Algebra 1 is to do an online course of study, self-selected, self-motivated, not selected, we'll select it, but students will be doing it on their own. And that's going to be given to students as a pre-algebraic experience to prepare them for the fall. We know the program that we're going to use. We know the sequence that we want students to use, and we will share that with families in early June. Why wouldn't we share it now? And why wouldn't we share it after finals? Why share it in early June? Our thinking is that as we get towards summer, we're hopeful that COVID restrictions will be lessened, and people will be able to do the things they do in the summer that they normally do. And if a student goes to kayaking camp for 8 weeks and they have no internet access, they're going to need some time to get this work done somehow before school starts. And we are anticipating that this is going to be a fairly rigorous course of study. So if we give students the bulk of the month of June to start it, if they so choose, that's fine. If you know you're going to be around in the summer and you want to meet out the study over the months of July and August, that's extremely reasonable. There's no reason to rush it, but we want to give kids the benefit of as many days as possible to allow for students to be fully prepared, because this is going to be a non-negotiable entry ticket to being in the class. The students must finish the full course of study during the summer in order to take their seat in the Algebra 1 class. That pre-algebraic work is essential to success right out of the gate, and they'll need to have that done. So we'll share more about that, about the specifics of that course of study as we move through the spring. But to give you some overview, we're looking at this being somewhere around 24 hours of mathematics instruction. Your mileage may vary. It might be a little more, it could be a little less, but in general, we do expect that students will spend about 24 hours plus or minus, allowing for all due curvature of the earth. During the summer, we do expect them to spend that time on pre-algebraic concepts. And again, it will all be online. It will be a self-selection in terms of how much they want to do at a given time. But we will be placing them into classes, and we're going to monitor progress during the summer. So approximately every 2 weeks, we're going to check in and see how students are doing. And if a student is not doing the work, we'll email you and say, it's important that you pace this and not do it at the very end. And it's also important that, that you get started. I've spoken to a couple of students about this directly, and I said, what would your plan be for doing work like this? And they said, I'll do it all at once, do it all in June. I'll get it done out of the way so I can enjoy my summer. It's a very typical and very reasonable 7th grade response. It may not be the most practical. If it's possible to spread this work out over the course of the summer, your student will gain more strength in the concepts. If you do it all at once and then there is a vast amount of time between the completion of this work and the start of school, it will not have the same impact. It can be done that way, but it's not what we would recommend. The summer work we're going to set aside for now, and would like to talk a little bit about just following up on a couple of points Mara made about the class in Algebra 1. It will go on the transcript, the high school transcript, so it should be a grade students are proud to see on the transcript. If a student is not making acceptable progress, meaning they're failing, we are going to make the decision to shift their class to Math 8 after the first quarter. We can't have a year of non-nutritive math experience for students. It would be a disservice. We're not going to leave a student in Algebra 1 who is failing under the guise that, oh, it's better that they get the concepts, and then when they see them in 9th grade, they'll be so prepared. That's faulty logic, and we're not going to do that. Students must maintain passing grades at all points during the course of the curriculum, and if a student is not able to keep up, we will make the shift with you to Math 8. Another concept that that is endemic within the study of algebra that needs to be discussed is this this very, very difficult paradigm where kids will come home and sit down to do work and be frustrated, and they will say to their parents, he didn't teach me this. I didn't see this before. They didn't cover this in class, which immediately sparks a response in some parents to say, we need to get you extra help, or we need to get a tutor, or I've got to call the school because the teacher is not teaching the course of study correctly. In fact, part of the paradigm for teaching upper level mathematics courses, and Algebra 1 does fall into the very first of the upper level math courses that are taught in our school district. Part of the paradigm is that often teachers are going to ask students to grapple with the unknown. Often teachers are going to give students work and say, you may not figure all of this out, but I want to see how far you get. It's not a mean trick. It's not to keep them on their toes. It is a constructivist approach to making students be more facile, more aware of what's in their toolbox and how to grapple with some complex content and concepts. The teachers don't make those assignments every night, but when they do, please know it's for a reason. So there's a lot more that is being asked of students in grade 8. Yes, there is a significantly larger portion of the curriculum that deals with abstraction. That's another portion of Algebra 1 that it can be difficult for some students. These are things to keep in mind as you consider the choices. Another thing to keep in mind about Algebra 1 as a course of study is that it is a Board of Regents adopted course of study, and it cannot be altered. It cannot be modified for students. Students must take the entire course of study, and they must take the curriculum as written. And so the math teachers, unlike Math 8, where teachers can make modifications and can modify the work for students, that cannot happen in the Algebra 1 class as per New York State oversight. We must adhere to that. Back to your choices. Math 8 is a very, very solid choice for many students. Some parents, though, I think rightfully so, who may have students in Math 7 might be saying, I see the value in Math 7, but I don't see the value in having my kids in the same class with the same kids all day. That part I'm not okay with. We're not doing that next year. we are guardedly optimistic that we are going to be able to switch classes next year. And that will mean that students will have their math class, whether it's Math 8 or Algebra 1, but that's their cohort for that math class. The rest of their day, they're going to see other students and be in other rooms and have other teachers. And that will be a welcome change for everybody involved, I assure you. But if you are a parent of a student who is currently in Math 7 and you're thinking, I understand that this is a good course of study, but I don't want that paradigm. That paradigm's not being followed next year, fortunately. Now, of course, if conditions change and New York State tells us numbers are on the rise and we have to change, that could change, but we don't foresee that being the case. I have done the schedule for next year. I've never done it this early. Part of why I was able to do it this early is that I had this schedule ready last year. And there are 2 sections of Math 8 that are scheduled for next year. So students by default, there's only 1 section of Math 7, by the way. So next year, the Math 7 students will be in 2 sections of Math 8 if they so choose. And by the way, children in Math 7/8 should not discount the value of going into Math 8. It is a very good course of study if the concepts are not quite being mastered. It's a very important step to get to before you get to full abstraction in 9th grade math. We're going to stop in a couple of minutes to answer questions. It would be probably best if the questions were in the chat, just to keep us moving in a linear fashion. But before we answer any questions that you might have, I just would like to say again, this is not the last time we're going to talk. This is our first foray into explaining the math sequence to families this year. We will talk again next month, where we will have specifics as it pertains to things parents should look for as they are considering their options. And then in early June, we will meet again. And by meet again, I mean we'll have a short meeting to go over the criteria for inclusion in Algebra 1 if folks want to take that course of study. And at that point, we'll unveil the plan so that parents who would like to do that can have their children do that, can make those choices from June through the end of the summer. Now, some of you might be saying, I'm not entirely sure I know what's best for my child. I really need to wait and see what the 4th quarter brings, or I need to see what the final exam brings. That's fair enough. You can keep those data points out in front and see where they go. I would like to have as many folks make that decision sometime around the end of school, if possible. But there are people who know now what they're going to do, and it's Math 8, and that's what's next, or it's Algebra 1, and that's fine too. But for people who really feel like they need the rest of this year to make the decision, it's totally fine. Additionally, you can talk to us about your concerns. You're balancing what you're thinking. Certainly, you can talk to the teachers. That includes Mr. Orsenego, but also please remember that Ms. Flaherty has spent more time with your children than Mr. Orsenego has. And from May 21st to the end of the year, she will be the teacher of record for all the 7th grade classes that Mr. Orsenego taught. So Miss Brea and Miss Flaherty will really be essential point people to help discuss what they think is best. If you don't agree with their recommendation, don't take it. It's open enrollment for a reason. We are not putting up an artificial gate. You can choose to do whatever you think is best. Once the class starts, we would like to not make switches unless there's a real reason to do it. So we'd very much like for the decisions you make to be durable ones. If you are opting for Math 8, but you'd still like your kid to do the summer work, that's an option. Your child has every availability to look at the summer work as a pre-class to pre-algebra. That's reasonable. So I just wanted to put that out there. And now we can answer questions if there are any. I'm going to work backwards. Who are the Math 8 teachers next year? Mr. Mitchell and Miss Olivari are the two math teachers in grade 8. They will teach both the Math 8 classes and they will both teach Algebra 1 classes. When do we hear from teachers on recommendations? June. In June. They're not going to hold, you can ask them earlier if you think that your child is on track. That's reasonable, but they're not going to make a full recommendation until we are further into the 4th quarter. If a student, what happens if a student is struggling with the summer online course? That work is not being graded by anyone. It is not possible to fail that work. However, that's a really good litmus test for you to consider whether your child is truly ready to take this next course of study, because if they're struggling with pre-algebraic concepts, it's certainly likely they're going to struggle even more mightily with the algebraic concepts, because you need to have those in your toolbox to accomplish the higher level goals. So struggling, you can pull the plug on it if it's just not going well and just send me an email and we can change things. That's not a problem at all at any point in the summer. Don't let your children work to the point of frustration. Not reasonable to do so. We're not asking for that. Could we see some samples of each course problems? Yes, we can do that in our next meeting where we go into more specifics. I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. Take a unit of study and break down a lesson to let you see the type of thing that happens in both classes. There is no paradigm in place that we have for teachers to be available to assist during the summer on this independent study work. First of all, I don't have the budget to do that. And secondly, philosophically, there's something important here about it being independent work. This work should, in some manner, not be totally unknown or not be totally new. In fact, a portion of the Math 7H work in particular is an overlap of some of the pre-algebraic work. It is the first unit of study of pre-algebra. So they should be coming to a place of known work. but the independent nature of the summer work is that's an important distinction, I think, for building the grit and building the toolbox of skills necessary to begin Algebra 1. Mr. Kind, do you want to talk about this concept quickly?
Sure. I mean, I think the chat explains it, but good evening, everybody. Aaron Kind, Director of Counseling. Thanks, Tom, and thank you, Maura, for putting this together. So in college, there's Calc 1, there's Calc 2, and BC Calculus covers Calc 1 and 2. So the students in that course, the seniors in that course, all AP classes end in a summative AP exam. So those students take 2 AP tests. And the Calculus AB class is just the first year of college level calculus. And that's pretty much the differences between those 2 classes.
Thank you, Aaron. Aaron has been also a consistent partner in helping us make these decisions so that the baton pass to high school is seamless, and also that students, once they're in high school, don't have to move levels as frequently. We think this is a good course correction for our students to have a stronger base going into high school. Is there a test per section to see if the students are understanding it? Yes, there are multiple tests and multiple assignments given during the course of study that they'll take online. The online instruction includes video instruction from a teacher that can be paused, backed up, rewatched, watched again, rewatched. It is all within student control until they get the concept. The assessment work being done during the summer work is again not graded, but they will get scores back on their own about how they are doing with each one of the units. Why is the summer work required now when it wasn't required for kids going from 7H to algebra in the past? The reason is because we are accepting a much larger potential cohort of students to the Algebra 1 class. It would not be, it would be disingenuous for us really to say, well, we're just going to change the title of the class and everybody who went to 8H and Algebra 1 is equally prepared to do very well on this work. We can't say that. The students in 8 that would have formerly gone to 8H need many of the concepts that are included in that summer work. Not all, some of them they've seen. And the students who are going to algebra cannot, that would have gone to algebra historically, cannot do anything but benefit from a review of these concepts to make sure that they don't have to be retaught in algebra. Algebra 1 needs to move at a capricious pace. There is not a lot of time for reteaching in Algebra 1. And that is another reason why the summer work is required. The fact that there will be more sections of Algebra 1 than we've had, we think, and we should, means that we'll have kids in there with a much wider range of background knowledge and mastered skills. So it is our thinking that it would really not be, it wouldn't be right to expect kids to just move from their 7th grade math class to Algebra 1 without at least grappling with these concepts for some time in this summer. will there be discussion of other subjects pertaining to course levels? No, we don't have any. We don't have any other courses in the middle school that have different strata of classes being offered simultaneously. Our math class is the only academic class that does that. In high school, they do have classes that have different titles and different content. But in the middle school, all students take the same battery of classes in the same year. Are regents used by colleges for acceptance? I'm going to refer back to our director of all things college. Mr. Kind is the best person to answer this question, even though I'll bet I could answer it.
Yeah, so it's a tricky question because the answer is both yes and no. If your student applies to a New York State college, their Regent scores could be part of an admissions decision, and the same for a New York City public college. Those scores could be used as part of an admissions decision. Once you leave, the boundaries of the state of New York, the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, etc., don't really have the same understanding of what it is required for a New York State student to graduate. So like the state tests in New York don't necessarily have any crossover to Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, etc. So if you're applying to a school out of state, they're not going to be used in an admissions decision.
The metrics are really for New York. Great. Thank you, Aaron. Any other questions tonight, folks? I'll wait another minute and I'll start concluding, and just let you know again that if it feels early, if it feels like this is an awkward conversation because for goodness sake, it's still April, that's an okay feeling to have right now. Nobody's asking you to make decisions right now. Nobody's asking you to even really contemplate decisions very deeply right now. However, we want people to know the direction that the math program for 8th graders next year will be going in, so we can continue a deepening conversation about what the course of study will look like and what the pre-work will look like and what the decision-making process can look like. So when we do get to the final point of getting teacher recommendations, there are likely to be less surprises and just more good data to use to help make a family decision. Again, both of these courses of study lead to highly successful high school graduates. Both of these courses of study are very attuned to the developmental needs of students in grade 8. Trying to push developmental stages beyond where they should be is never a good idea, and maybe nowhere is that more easily seen than in the math class. So we want to make sure, which is one of the reasons why it's the only subject that we differentiate or have different groups of classes for in the middle school. In general, we don't, and we eschew doing that. We prefer when everybody is together, but in math, it's not the best choice. So please do know, again, I know I said it, but if your child is currently in Math 7H, that is not a reasonable thing to say, oh, therefore he must go to algebra. Being in Math 7, oh, that means she must go to Math 8. That's not necessarily true. it may be the case that many kids who are in those classes will end up in those two cohorts, but on an individual basis, it does make a difference that that decision is made using criteria that we will discuss next month in detail. Two more questions, and then I'm gonna let people have their night. How should families notify the school of their decision? We're going to set up an email for that, so that you'll fill out a survey. It'll be a very, very basic survey saying what your preference is, and then you'll get a return response from me that it was received, and we can know that we agree on what it said. When I say agree on what it said, just to make sure that your email was tabulated correctly, not that I'm going to challenge it. If a student takes Algebra 1 in the 8th grade, and then again in the 9th grade, do both grades go on the high school transcript? No. Only the most current class grade would appear on the transcript. So if your child is in Algebra 1, and obviously we're making this up, and they're middling through with C's, and you make a family decision that it really makes more sense to take Algebra 1 again in 9th grade, and they get A's, the A's are what shows. The 8th grade experience is not part of the transcript at all. If Algebra 1 is retaken, that's the course of record for the transcript. I see Mr. Kind is nodding his head. That's a relief. And Mara answered the same question much more succinctly than I did. So thank you, Mara. Mr. Wilson, what is the deadline for making the decision? End of school year, July 1st. I mean, I really don't, there's nothing, we're not selling used cars here. We're not trying to make people fit some paradigm that we have confected. By the end of school, if you want to wait for the final grades to come out, that's fine. If you want to tell us in early June, that's fine. There will be an open document that you can use that we will talk about as we formulate it and share it with you. But in early June, you can start letting us know. And we'd like you to let us know after you've had a few days to ruminate and consider options after finals and grades are posted for Q4. I hope that seems reasonable. We think it is. And thank you. Thanks to everyone for being here tonight. We're very appreciative of the time, and we want to be clear that the next time we meet, we're going to meet for a shorter period of time, only out of respect for everybody's evening. But this meeting went just about as long as we expected it to. And again, we are grateful for your attendance. Please tell anybody who didn't get to join tonight that this meeting is recorded and will be available. Brian Parker has seen to that for us, and thank you, Brian, for managing behind the scenes. And we will announce another short meeting in May to talk about later in May, and then another short meeting in June to unveil the summer work for Algebra 1 and the page for joining a class. Okay. With that, thank you all very much, and we wish you a good evening.